They didn't ask. They just decided. And like always, I was supposed to smile, nod, and clean up the fallout. My name is Tessa Monroe. I'm 31 years old, and I've lived in Portland, Oregon for the last 6 years. I work as a financial analyst for a mid-size logistics company. Nothing flashy, but stable. Quiet apartment, quiet job, quiet life. No drama, no noise. Everything I have, I earned. My degree, my condo, my spotless credit, my IKEA bookshelf I assembled with blistered hands. Mine. No favors, no rescues. But ask my family, and they'll tell you I'm distant. Not because I'm cruel. I just stopped cushioning everyone else's chaos. See, I have a younger brother, Landon, 3 years younger but always treated like he was made of glass. Landon doesn't just make mistakes. He creates cautionary tales. He's charming, sure, but every wreck he walks into somehow becomes someone else's responsibility. Another eviction? The landlord was vindictive. Lost his job? Management didn't value creativity. Behind on bills again? He's trying his best. And my parents, Rob and Denise, never question it. They just rearrange the furniture and ask me to cover the mortgage. You're responsible, Tessa. You're fortunate enough to help. That word has been chained to me for over a decade. Help with his tuition. Help with his debt. Help with damage control. And when I finally said no, I became the problem. I figured out early on that love in my family wasn't unconditional. It was transactional. And when I stopped paying, the distance grew. So when I walked into Sunday dinner at my parents' house in Beaverton, I felt it. The tension. The script. Mom answered the door with that brittle cheer in her voice. You look tired, honey. Working too hard? Dad grunted a hello without looking up from the TV. Landon was already on his second drink, glued to his phone like a teenager who'd been grounded. I recognized the setup. When Mom acts sugar-sweet and Dad goes mute, it means a decision's been made. A decision I wasn't part of. Because they knew I'd say no, and I was right. We barely got through the appetizers before they dropped the bomb. Then Mom set her fork down, laced her fingers together like she was about to deliver a prayer instead of a decision, and gave me that gentle, saccharine smile she reserved for guilt-laced demands. Tessa, she began, her voice too soft to be casual. We've been talking. Landon's had a really tough time lately, and, well, he's going to be moving in with you for a bit. Just like that. No question, no discussion. She said it like she was handing me a slice of cake. Like, of course I'd say yes. Like the idea of my unstable, boundary-breaking brother living in my space was something I should welcome with open arms. I felt it. The stillness that fell across the table. They were waiting for me to push back, to be the difficult one again. I glanced at Landon. He looked up for a split second, then back at his phone. My dad shifted in his chair, already tensing for the debate. Instead, I smiled. Of course, I said, my voice light. If it helps Landon get back on his feet, I don't see why not. The pause was sharp enough to slice through the air. Mom blinked, momentarily disoriented. Dad let out a long breath, clearly relieved. Landon leaned back, smugness blooming across his face, like mold in the corners of a room no one cleans. What none of them noticed, what none of them thought to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that apartment in over a month. I hadn't told anyone I'd moved, or that the lease was transferred, or that the keys now belonged to someone else entirely. I didn't plan to lie to my family. It just evolved. Slowly. After years of being leveraged for my stability. After years of giving while they just expected. When I was 23, Landon's car got towed. He called in tears, needed it for a life-changing job. My credit was clean. I co-signed. He quit 3 weeks later. At 25, Mom cried about the mortgage. Dad had been laid off. Landon was back home. I wired $3,000, 0 cents. No thanks. At 28, Landon got a DUI. I paid for the attorney. No acknowledgement. The next year, I said no. and Mom called me heartless. So now? I just smiled, while the stranger with the keys waited at the door. You've never understood what it means to worry about someone you love, Mom said. Landon's life is harder than yours. And that was the moment I stopped guessing and finally knew. They didn't see me. They saw a service. A faucet to turn when something broke. A credit score that cooked. A wallet with a heartbeat. So I started pulling away. Gently, no dramatic declarations, just soft no's where there used to be yeses. Topic changes instead of advice. I'll think about it instead of I'll fix it. They noticed, and they didn't like it. One quiet evening, I sat in the living room of my downtown condo, the one I bought solo, furnished slowly with clearance finds, spreadsheets, and quiet persistence. I stared at the front door and realized I no longer felt safe there, because it wasn't really mine when they wanted something. It was ours, like everything else. My time, my peace, my savings. So I made a decision. I called a realtor, sold the condo, quietly, legally, without drama. I signed a lease on a rental across the river. Smaller. No skyline view, but mine. No one asked where I'd moved. I didn't tell them. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. When your family only loves your usefulness, the kindest thing you can do for your own sanity is to become slightly unavailable. Just enough to exhale. By Monday, the texts started. We'll bring Landon's mattress Saturday. Dad's boxing up his things Friday. He's excited to have space of his own finally. I didn't reply. They weren't talking to me. They were talking to the version of me they thought still existed. By Thursday, Mom was on a roll. Let me know if I should bring over cleaning supplies. Landon says he'll do his own laundry this time. He's bringing his own dishes. That one made me laugh into my coffee. Landon hadn't washed a plate sober in years. I let it all roll in. Didn't argue. Didn't correct them. On Saturday morning, I left early. Just left. Grabbed a latte, took the long way over the Hawthorne Bridge. Strolled through a local craft market I didn't plan to buy anything from. Let the sun hit my skin. My phone buzzed 3 times before I finally checked it. If you've ever been the responsible one in a family that took you for granted, subscribe and stay with me, because what happened after they showed up at my old apartment is something I'll never forget. Missed calls, voicemails. I let the 4th one ring through. It was Mom, but not the usual sing-song tone she used for favors. This was the brittle voice, the one made of nerves and veiled accusation. "What's going on?" she barked. "There's someone here. Some man." Her voice wobbled. "He says he lives in the condo now, says you don't live there anymore." I let the silence stretch. Let her feel the disorientation, the unfamiliarity of not knowing, of being left out. "You didn't tell us," she snapped. "You never said a word." "No," I replied, calm. I didn't. I could hear them scrambling, bags rustling, muffled cursing. Dad's voice, sharp and tense. Landon muttering something I couldn't catch. "Tessa," Mom hissed. "What is this?" "I sold the condo," I said plainly, "weeks ago." "You what?" I moved out quietly. No one asked where I lived, so I didn't say. For a moment, nothing. I imagined them standing in front of that building, luggage at their feet, realizing they'd planned a quiet takeover, only to find the castle belonged to someone else. Then Dad's voice cut through. "You lied to us." "No," I said. "I said if it helps Landon, I didn't see why not. I never said where." Another pause. Then, from Landon. "So what now? We're just supposed to figure it out?" His voice wasn't angry, just hollow, lost, and for a flicker of a second, I nearly softened. But I didn't, because here's what they never understood. I didn't change the locks out of spite. I didn't sell my home to punish anyone. I did it because I needed space that was truly mine. Because every time I let them back in, I disappeared just a little more. And sometimes the only way to be free is to stop making yourself available for sacrifice. They thought that would be the end of it. They were wrong. By evening, they were at my door. I knew they'd find me. Mom doesn't let go of control easily. She'd dig. She'd guilt. She'd prove I was still in orbit. So when the knock came, 3 sharp, polite raps trying to mask the unraveling, I was already at the peephole. And I was ready. "Do you know what people will think of you?" Mom hissed. "Do you know what they'll say?" "Yes," I said quietly. "They'll say I finally stopped opening my door." She blinked. Her voice shrank. "You used to be kind." I didn't flinch. "You used to notice when I was in pain." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense, crammed with every boundary I had let them cross, every yes I gave when I wanted to scream no, every debt I'd quietly repaid in love, money, or time. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Calm. Quiet. An officer stepped out. Tall. Steady. Hand near her belt, but relaxed. "Evening," she said. "We got a report of trespassing." I nodded. That would be me. She glanced at them. My parents, Landon, bags still stacked in their trunk. "Ma'am, sir," she addressed them, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." "This is our daughter," Dad snapped. "This is a family matter." "This is her residence," the officer replied, cool and clear. "And you are not allowed to remain here without permission." Landon's jaw was tight, his face flushed. "You're going to regret this," he spat. "No," I said, stepping back into my apartment. "I've regretted almost everything until this moment." That night, I fell asleep to silence. By morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls. 5 from Mom, 2 from Dad, the rest from numbers I didn't recognize, cousins probably, or family friends I hadn't heard from since I was 19. Then came the texts. "Why would you do this to your own brother? Your mother is devastated. Landon's sleeping in his car. Is that what you wanted?" I didn't reply. I scrolled. Then I saw it. A Facebook post from my mother, public. 3 paragraphs, laced with heartbreak emojis and a photo of Landon as a baby. "We raised both our children to love and support each other," it read. "But one of them has forgotten. Tessa has turned her back on us in our time of need. We're devastated. Landon didn't deserve this." Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from people who hadn't spoken to me since elementary school, calling me cold, entitled, selfish. It wasn't new, just louder. I stared at it for a long time. Then, for the first time, I posted back. No hashtags, no captions. Just screenshots. A $3,000 0 cents wire transfer to cover their mortgage. My name on Landon's car loan, then the collections notice. The lawyer's invoice from his DU. Proof, just facts. And that was only the beginning. I posted it all. A timeline of every one-time favor I'd agreed to since I was 21. Every wire transfer, every bill I paid to keep the lights on in someone else's storm. The receipt for the condo sale, time-stamped and notarized. And at the end, a screenshot of a message I'd saved for 2 years. It was from Landon, sent late one night after I told him no, again. It read, "You're a boring robot, Tessa. You think you're better than everyone just because you're responsible." All because I wouldn't let him crash for a month. I ended my post with one quiet sentence. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. Then I turned off my phone. Not out of fear, not because I needed validation, but because, for the first time, I didn't. I just needed stillness. And that night, I had it. The apartment was calm. No phone vibrating off the counter, no footsteps outside the door. Just the low hum of the fridge, the creak of the baseboards, the steady breath of a place that finally felt like mine. I made chamomile tea. Not for sleep, I didn't need help sleeping anymore, but for the ritual. Holding a warm mug in both hands, letting the steam rise, like forgiveness. I no longer sought. The screen of my phone lit up once. Mom. Then again. Landon. I didn't open them. I didn't have to. I knew the rhythm: shock, anger, guilt, pleading. It was always in that order. I blocked both numbers, not because I was angry, not because I was proud, but because not every door deserves to be knocked on forever. I stepped out onto the balcony. It was cold, but not biting, the kind of cold that reminds you you're still here. Below, the city moved. Headlights in motion, a couple crossing the street, someone in a comically oversized coat walking a golden retriever. A neighbor 2 floors down looked up and waved. I waved back. Simple, real, no obligation attached. Inside, I turned off the lights. One room at a time. Kitchen, hallway, bedroom. No framed memories on the walls. No curated proof of loyalty. Just space. Just peace. I didn't feel triumphant, or bitter, or broken. I just felt done. Done performing, done explaining, done being the oxygen mask for people who refuse to breathe on their own. Somewhere they were probably rewriting the story again, casting me as the villain, the cold one, the ungrateful daughter. And that's them. I didn't vanish. I just stopped letting them script my silence. They wrote their version. And now, I've written it back. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for witnessing. I didn't share this to be pitied. I didn't post screenshots to start a war. I shared my story because I know I'm not the only one who's ever been called ungrateful for having boundaries, selfish for choosing peace, heartless for walking away from people who only loved what you could do, not who you are. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've spent years biting your tongue at family dinners, stretching your bank account to protect people who wouldn't do the same for you. Maybe you've said yes when your soul was screaming no, because disappointing others felt worse than betraying yourself. If that's you, I see you. And you're not alone anymore. Drop a comment if you've ever had to make that hard call, cutting ties, stepping back, or just choosing silence over one more argument you'd never win. Tell me what part hit home. Or just let me know you're out there, building peace in your own way. And if you're still stuck in it, still trying to find the line between compassion and self-erasure, here's what I've learned. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You're allowed to love people and still protect your space. You're allowed to stop being the emergency contact for chaos. So hit that subscribe button if you believe in taking your story back. If you're done letting other people write your role, if you're rebuilding your life, one healthy no at a time. I'm Tessa Monroe, and this isn't the story they'll tell at reunions. It's the one I'm telling for myself, and for anyone else who's finally ready to stop apologizing for breathing.